Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory, and if you've never been here before, you're watching Varietal Literature's YouTube page, which is a little cozy corner of the internet for narrative. And what we do here on Thursday nights is we play old solo tabletop RPGs, lyric games, things like that, and we use them as inspiration for writing, which we do together. And if you are here live, then you should join in the live chat. Our little crop of potatoes is growing, and pitch in your ideas, because I do take them into account as we write, and this is a game we are playing together. And I'll remind chat, because I don't think she's here yet, it is Jumstor's birthday today, so when she gets here, everyone yell surprise. Oh no, the delay is gonna make that happen afterwards now. She just got here. Well, happy birthday, Jumpstore. Thank you for tuning in for the last 6 or 7 months, I think it is. And I really appreciate it. Witchery and Genera are otherwise preoccupied, but are listening. Well, I'm glad to have you listen. I hope you're feeling better, Witchery. Tammy, I hope you enjoyed your art show. I think you had it last week. Or this week. And hello, GS. And hello, Zombie Wolf. I saw you there. If you're not watching live, though, and you want to skip over all this, if you're just here to learn about the game or to see what we came up with or whatever, down in the description below, when this video is no longer live, there will be timestamps, and those timestamps will take you to whatever part of the show you care about. If you're like, will this man ever shut up? The correct answer is no, but I might be saying things you care more about if you skip ahead to the various timestamps. But nonetheless, I'm going to re-describe the game very briefly, but we're not going to go too in-depth with the rule descriptions overall, because this is a part 2, which I don't normally do because it usually kind of kills viewership. But we're in the middle of July. Everyone's going on vacation. Viewership's dead anyways. And I was curious. I like this game. I'll tell you a bit more about the game in case you've never heard it before. I don't think you have to go back and watch the first stream of Lunar Echoes to get what's going to happen here, because I am going to reread what we wrote last week. So you'll catch yourself up pretty quickly, but if you are interested in how the character building is done, that's the main thing we did last week, and you might be more interested in that video. Jumpstore, just for your birthday, and just so you know, that's a lie. It's not why I have it, but I did think it was appropriate. My tea today is not Earl Grey. My tea today is moringa with blueberry, and it is okay. It's not bad, but it's not exactly amazing. I got it in a little packet of a friend of mine when I was diagnosed as a celiac got me a little snack box monthly, and they sent me tea in this month, amongst other things. It wasn't just tea. That'd be disappointing. All right, let's remind ourselves how this game works, and then get to the writing. Hopefully we'll do more writing than we did last week. This part of the show is called Lit Games, and it stands for Literature Games, which is our catch-all phrase for things like lyric games, solo tabletop RPGs, all these various sort of indie tabletop writing-focused games that you can play, largely from itch.io, but not exclusively. And the game that we're playing tonight is called Lunar Echoes, so let me tell you about that. Lunar Echoes is a... This is complicated because it's some inside baseball, and if you're not familiar with like solo tabletop RPG stuff, I might lose you, but stick with me. This is a hack, which is a term for using the rules from one system for a completely different setting or something like that. This is a hack of the rule system from the game Wanderhome, which is an excellent game in its own right, though I've never played it on the stream because it generally doesn't work too well on solo. It does work, it just isn't amazing. It's a hack of Wanderhome, but it's based on the world created by Becky Chambers in the book A Psalm for the Wild Built, which is a novella. I think it's one of 2 that she did in that world, with a distinct... It's on a moon called Panga. Half the moon, none of the humans go to. It was given over to factory drones who they haven't seen in a long time. There's a bunch of little in-world lore. I'm not going to go too much into the lore here, but what I will say is I do actually have the novella. I've read about half of it, which is only because I've been actually quite busy this week. I had planned to finish it, but the half I read was enough to get a sense of the world. Maybe as I go along, I'll say some thoughts on the book itself, but I do think it's worth reading if you're interested in the sort of utopic vision of Solarpunk. Because that's what this is. This is Wanderhome as a Solarpunk world. And if you don't know what Solarpunk is, I realized I just sort of dropped that term last stream and never said anything about it. And then I had Uncle Kitty had asked a bit, who I just realized I never responded to. Sorry, Uncle Kitty. Uncle Kitty had mentioned, not for this, but for the video on Tuesday, had mentioned that they'd never heard the term Solarpunk. And I think in the gist of it is Solarpunk is utopic views of the future where we have fully renewable energy, and it is tied into other things pretty consistently, but not necessarily. Like it definitely has connections to sort of, you know, communes and anarcho-syndicalist kind of stuff, but I don't think it's exclusively in that direction. It is not Luddite in the modern sense of that term, not the original sense of that term. It is technology. People do have computers and things like that. But it is a focus towards sustainability. And if you want, it's sort of fan fiction for a future we don't have to... Well, for the future different than what we currently face. And if that's appealing to you, that's Solarpunk as a genre. Named as such for, like, solar panels, right? But, yeah. Tammy says the Van, and I'll be honest, I know how it's pronounced and I can't recreate it. The closest I can get is Van Gogh, but it's a Dutch sound that I just don't seem to be able to get my tongue around. Was apparently very cool and very informative. If anyone gets a chance, go. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, I've only seen a couple of his paintings. They were phenomenal to see in person because you can really see the texture of the paint. I do understand that the thing you went to, there isn't actually his paintings, it's projections of his paintings, which is very cool too because there's lots of unique colors that you can experience from him. Okay. So, with all of that said, what we did last week was we set up our characters. So I'm going to do a hard shift over, reread what we wrote last week. If you did join in last week and you're not watching live, feel free to skip past this. It's to catch everyone else up in the chat because I'm sure they've forgotten a lot of it. And then the thing we're going to have to do this week, the mechanic that we're going to engage with this week, chat, is we're going to start building locations, which is similar to how you build characters, but it's different. So we're going to work on that. We're going to create our hometown. We're going to leave our hometown after we create it. And then if we get that far, hopefully we'll get to one other location, at least joining up with it, with our 2 stars, which are Rune on his hover cycle and Astraelis, the T-Monk, who I now know more about because the lead character of A Psalm for Wild Built is a non-binary T-Monk. And T-Monks, yes, are about tea, but really are community therapists. Which was really interesting. You will go to a tea monk, they make you teas based on your troubles, and then talk to you about your troubles. It's very sweet. Zombie Wolf says, my favorite Van Gogh, pronounced go by Americans at least. Yeah, that's sort of what I was raised with, and then I found out that that's not correct. But I mean, I don't think anybody really minds. We all know who you mean. Painting is Tree Roots. He painted in only a few hours before he unsubscribed to life. What a modern way to put it. I don't know if I've seen Tree Roots. I'll have to look at it. I do really like paintings. I like art galleries. I don't think that should be surprising, but maybe it needs to be said. I really like art galleries. Maybe not all the politics around them, but just a a quiet place to sort of really think about something that somebody put a lot of effort and sincerity in. How about that? However you want to manifest it. Okay. So this is 5 or 6 minutes of me giving you a breakneck catch-up of our 2 characters and the story we wrote so far. So again, if you don't care about that, skip ahead 5 or 6 minutes. We'll get to building the town. Our main character, which I came up with largely on my own because I gave chat their own character to control and decide, is Rune, whose pronouns are he, him. He is a disciple. The world of Psalm for the Wild built, Becky Chambers' world, I guess I could call it, has a series of sort of main gods and then children gods. Chal is the god of like inventions and technology and engineering. Anyways, disciple of Chal, because he is a mechanic. That's his profession or his occupation or whatever you want to say, his sort of pursuit. One of the principles of Becky Chambers' world, and really one of the principles of a lot of sort of Solarpunk stuff in general, is the non-coercive transition to whatever it is that you want to do in your life. So obviously you could change roles. In his case, he's pretty happy being a mechanic. He inherited a treasure relic from the pre-transition, which is a motorbike. And he's very good at salvaging ruins to find technology. He's a little bit afraid with like sitting still and thinking about things until revelations come, which is apparently a part of the Chal sort of path. He's also afraid of collaborating with a fellow miraculous disciple in Chal. Specifically though, he is yearning for a unrequited love, who he met over a 2-way radio. We'll hear about that in a moment. His description is he has wild hair. These are descriptions from the book, like phrases from the book you pick. He has wild hair, bright smile for new ideas, honest eyes, knitted sweaters, 2 sizes too big. You guys are going to have to remind me about that sweater. His skills are divining functions of ancient objects, portable repairing with a wagon. Wagons are just sort of like little bike-driven toolboxes and campers, if you will. His weakness is delving in old texts for forgotten ideas. He's a very sort of fidgety, ADHD kind of guy. So he has trouble with anything that requires him to sit still and focus, really. He has his mother's multi-tool, which he fears to lose. He keeps a small welder with him, which is both a torch in dark places, but also very functional. And he can do many things always, so on and so forth. Okay, now the other was... Where did I put your stats, chat? Here. The other is Astraelis. She, her, has a round face, long strawberry blonde hair, colorful handmade flowy clothing, and is tall, which was a mix of suggestions from the chat last week. Is a disciple of Alale, as the lead of Psalm for the Wild built is as well. A god of small comforts, and specifically takes the occupation of tea monk, which, as we learned in the opening of this, are sort of like traveling community therapists. They show up in a settlement or a town. They set up their little stand, and people who need someone to talk to come and talk to them, and they mix some teas that they think will help them. This is the one you're playing, chat. So, think about teas you would mix and stuff. We can use real stuff if we want. But it's also a fantasy moon planet, so we can make stuff up. Which is more how the book does it. But we're not tied to the canon of the book. 2 things we are: creative and open-hearted. 2 things we are not: loud, but wish we were. We sort of talked about being too demure. I out of context said, I saw Zombie Wolf say, I know Rory is a cinnamon roll, so you'll probably disagree, but we expect no less from our wholesome host. Wait, what does it mean that I'm a cinnamon roll? What does that mean? Spicy and sweet? Oh, I see. True art. Um, my definitions of art are informed by years of philosophy, which is, informs how general it is. I just don't like people telling other people what to like. That's probably what you're referencing. Anyways, the one joy that your character misses is getting surprise presents. I don't know if you folks remembered that. The 5 people we know we listed here, I'll come back to those if we need to. I don't know why this one is 6 times larger than the rest. 5 people we know from around town, because T-Monks know people because they sit down and talk to them. Zombie Wolf says, Cinnamon Roll says here, too sweet and too pure for the cruel world. Aw. Well, that's very kind of you to say. But obviously, you know, on stream, I'm going to be my sweetest self. I also am a human being with my mood swings and gripes and so on. All right, Astraelis, of which chat collectively is. Thank you for your tea. It's okay. Moringa and blueberry tea. It's tea. I mean, it's not bad. It's just a little bit. I will say this. I don't believe in a hierarchy of art, if that's what you're referencing. But again, that comes more from the philosophy analytics side of my brain than it does any kind of like personal grievance. Also, a knowledge of history and the kind of people who were into hierarchies of art are concerning to me. Anyways, I'll read you what we wrote last week. It's not too long because we mostly were building our character. But chat, let's get ourselves back into that clean air, the slow hum of a windmill, the soft chitter of bugs in the tree. Although if we're going with the psalm for the wild-built world, apparently crickets are basically extinct. So we're not going to hear that. That's a bit of a spoiler. Jumpstar is already coming up with T-Mix ideas. Absolutely hang on to that. We will definitely need it. Rune was 14 when he recognized the odd magnetic nature of Panga's crust. Panga is the moon we live on. When the odd magnetic nature of Panga's crust recognized the odd magnetic nature of Panga's crust meant that a pair of contactless stabilizers from the Rune factory could be repurposed into the propulsion of a hoverbike. Have I ever mentioned that 40% of any story is its editor? That could be a much better sentence. Editors are the unsung hero of books. You think your writers are good at writing. They're good at storytelling usually, and the rest is our dear beloved editors. It took another year and one broken arm before Rune could make the whole concept stable enough to ride. He built the old stabilizers onto an ancient combustion and rubber-style bike that his grandfather had gifted him. He didn't like how the rubber tires battered the vines and underbrush of the border wilds, which was what set him onto the idea in the first place of mounting it with the stabilizers. It was a charming side effect that the reduced friction made it the fastest means of travel in his village. The power consumption was high, he could manage well enough for short trips on sunny days, but he had to distill a high-proof vine liquor to run the old combustion engine on longer trips. He had heard of reactor cells that may solve the problem, a remnant of the old world from Eloise, but had yet to find any in his local runes. Ah yes, Eloise. Eloise was a lady that Rune had never met, and yet had sketched from his imagination of her face every night for a year. Eloise was from a colony on the far side of the Panga moon, and Rune had gotten to know her through an old two-way radio, which he had repaired and taken from old runes. They talked for months, sharing their love of technology, but lost this thin thread of connection when the village antenna was melted by a lightning strike during the days of storms. Rune, now 18, had convinced his mother that he knew where to find another one of these great antennas. He wanted to take his high-speed bike into the woods and bring it home. In truth, Rune only assumed such an antenna might be out there. Rune had eyes instead for Eloise. He needed only permission for the journey, one much longer than he was promising his mom, though. And she agreed only if he wouldn't go alone. And Rune knew exactly who to bring, which is where your character comes in. I'm just going to do something really good. Quick here. Yeah, always skip that song anyways, so I'm removing it. Get back to the story. Astraelis, a tall tea monk on the south end of Rune's town, was a tall tea monk on the... It's a fragment of a sentence without the was. Astra, as Rune called her, was always keen to help, though he knew he would have to underplay the length of the journey. If Astra really thought about it too long, she would realize that she might be weeks away from a good cup of tea, a burden he doubted she was eager to bear. He hopped on his hoverbike and roared up the grassy mainway in town, swiftly sweeping his rumbling ride between the pedestrians. Some found this expression of his own mechanical prowess admirable, an acknowledgement of Chal, and cheered on his nimble machinery as it floated on by. Others, however, such as Giorgio, the grumpy rose gardener, would shout curses at the young, unkempt boy for how his bike's wake shook and bowed his tallest roses. Rune was oblivious to most of this chatter, though, as the growl of his alcohol engine and the low hum of his stabilizers were most all he could hear when he rode. In no time at all, he swept up against a small wattle fence that was framed a wild garden of herbs and tea plants so tall and intertwined that one could barely discern a low thatched roof at the heart of it. This was Astra's home, root-bound by robust tea plants and filled inside with drying racks hung with strange leaves. A strange sight for what was common in the town, but a common sight for a tea monk's refuge. With a startling knock, Rune shouted from the door, "Astra! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! I have the most amazing news you will hear today or any day!" After a pause and then some crashing, the door creaked open and Rune looked up to see the bleary eyes of a soft-featured woman in a rough-hewn hoodie dyed 5 shades of orange. "Hello, Rune," she yawned. "In the noonday light, I was just putting some tea leaves." "Oh, stop it, Astra," Rune chuckled. "I know you were still asleep. I just hope your late night means you made a good blend for me to sip while I tell you the most amazing news ever told in this town, or perhaps the entire moon." Astra raised her eyebrows with a slight skepticism, but smiled in a way that betrayed how charming she found Rune's enthusiasm. "Okay," she said quietly. "Come in and I'll make some tea." "Oh, I can't wait for you to boil some water. My mom said I could go," Rune shouted. "And you have to come with me. That's the condition. That's okay, right? Please be okay. I couldn't talk her into it any other way. I'll give you all the pebs in existence if you..." Astra laughed louder than would be typical for her demure nature and said, "Look at you, yipping like a terrier. Of course I'll go. You're my best friend." "Awesome!" shrieked Rune, who immediately forgot about the tea, then sprinted back towards his hoverbike, failing a leap over the wattle fence and landing in the path before it, face first. From behind the bound weeds, the last thing he shouted to Astra was, "I'll be back in 30 minutes to pick you up. I just gotta tell my mom." Astra needed to tell him that she would need more time, but he had already kicked his bike to life and swept off down the main way of town. "Well, I better back quick. I wonder how much tea I will need," Astra muttered to herself as she perused her kingdom of steepable chlorophyll. Okay. Jumpstore says, "Tea mix with celestial blossoms, powdered astral spice, brewed with lunar crystal water, harvested in the light of a supermoon." Very cool. Okay. Let's make our hometown. So, to make a hometown, to go to okay. Jump Store says they call the tea blend Celine's Repose. Ooh, elegant. I'll read you a little bit about what they say about our hometown, where we start. At the heart of our journey is our community, the place we call home, the land we work to make our brighter future together. To create this place, we select 3 of the built natures, which start on page 89, or choose them randomly, which we're going to do in about 40 seconds. These natures serve as the building blocks and inspiration for your community. The world of Panga is in transition, moving forward and progressing into a great unknown. Think of these natures as both literal and metaphorical things, that inform your community. Once 3 natures have been chosen, consult them at page 89 and make choices for them. And then it describes how you would do that at a table, but we're just going to talk about it. Jump Store says, named after the Greek Titan goddess of the moon. I'll admit I don't know that much about the Titans. Not that I'm a huge fan of Zeus, but he did kind of suck all the air out of the room when he killed them. Well, this is the page I went to. I think they need to recheck. Okay, there we go. Natures are built or wild, and I believe that they refer to features in a town. They call them natures, but let's just forget that the common connotations of that for a moment. But it's weird that they don't title them, but I can see where they are. Okay. So the way this works is, for example, if we go to a monastery and a sorry, my brain is, I've played 3 different tabletop systems this week for various reasons outside of the stream, and now I'm starting to feel like I might be blending a rule set, so let me just make sure I remember this. And one way I can do that is double check this. Right. Okay. So my best understanding of the rules on this is that each of these are features that come up in a city. So like a oh no, Witchery says they've lost their taste. Probably from their current sickness. I hope it's not a long time. So for example, I think we can pick like a wagon is like a traveling thing that might do repairs, or in the case of tea monks, might carry around tea and come to town, and they tend to come regularly. But satellite village and public sauna and cookhouse and stuff, these are features that our town can have. And then we sort of build our city out of that. So the thing that's a little bit confusing about this is that some of the natures are pretty distinct. Like it is a Coastland Village or something, which is a distinct area in Becky Chambers' world. But some of them are more about things within that town, like whether it has a cookhouse or a geothermal plant. So, chat, here goes. Wagons and monasteries we're going to ignore for now. Satellite villages. The satellite villages encircle the city and are arranged in concentric circles. In the outer ring is farmland, and then the residential ring and community buildings, and a market circle in the center. So we could be a satellite village, which more describes how it's arranged out in rings. So that's one nature. We have to pick 3 of these. The next one is we can say that it has a public sauna, which I don't think I need to describe. It's just a common sauna. A cookhouse. I mean, you can assume most cities have cookhouses, but we'd be focusing on them. A common house, which is the living room of the community where people gather together. Anyone can get something they need, be that a bed, a toothbrush, a comfy chair, or a conversation. So, you know, like a community center. Maybe a little more inclusive. A traveler's clearing is set aside in all communities for weary travelers, merchants, and monks for their tents and wagons. It's a fancy phrase for a campground where you let people, you know, hang out. Tool library. If you've lived in a left-leaning city in the last 10 years, you probably already know what a tool library is. As a person from Vancouver, we definitely have them. But if you don't, it's a place that you can go and check out tools. Largely built around people who really can't have workshops. Because in our generation, I don't know what your generation is. I'm a millennial. Millennials and younger are largely renting apartments. So things that require workshops and stuff like that are pretty much precluded from most of our lives. So a lot of the time we have tool libraries and rentable wood shops and things like that if people want to pursue that as a hobby. Okay. The city is where most of people of Panga live. It's surrounded by smaller satellite villages and farms. So this is the thing that I find a little odd. They call all of these built natures. And I feel like I must be misunderstanding because a lot of them preclude aspects of other ones. Like, how could you be a satellite village and the city? Maybe I'm missing something. I do find this aspect of the game, I found it when I read it last week, a little bit confusing. I find it a little bit confusing this week. It doesn't matter too much because it's a solo tabletop RPG about writing a story. Let's not get hung up on it. But anyways, the city is a city. It's a proper city. They don't really have combustion engines or oil-based anything, so it's not going to be in that city in that way, but it is a busy place. I think I've already pretty much established that we don't live in a city, so I think this one's out. The Coastlands Village. The Coastlands are a cold, windy, salty region inhabited by people who live in groups of up to 12 families. Their homes are built on stilts along the rocky cliffs that overlook giant bodies of water. People who live in coastline communities generally keep to themselves and aren't always warm to strangers. They reject the use of technology, and many don't even have electricity in their homes. Well, we don't live in there. The Woodlands Village. The woodland, like many other places inhabited by the people of Panga, are still recuperating and regenerating from the effects of the factory age. Woodlands filled with young trees that are tall and thin. The people of the woodlands make every effort to avoid disturbing the soil and the critters who live within it, so they're more likely to be found hunting and gathering than farming. I feel like woodlands is an option. GS says, well, coastlands are my cup of tea and the tool library. I do like the tool library. I think that should be in there, especially since Chal is like, Rune is a disciple of Chal. It would explain how he had the tools to work on the stuff he did. I like the coastlands, and I think we should go to them in this story. I don't know that what I've written so far fits with it, though. it feels like it fits with the woodlands. Yeah, Jumpstore says, I think Astra would love the woodlands as a chance to observe any possible rate herbs for tea. Maybe that's a use of rate I don't understand, or maybe that was a typo. The shrubland villages. The shrublands are filled with rolling hills dotted with trees. I do like my rolling hills, but I think it's probably going to be woodlands. Rare. Oh, Gia says rare. You're right. It is rare. I think everybody's voting woodlands. I'm keen with woodlands. My desired aesthetic is anarcho-hobbit, as I call it. The folks who reside and work on shrublands, collectivized farms are warm, welcoming, hardworking people. I don't know that any of our characters are hardworking. Rune sort of works on his little projects, but I don't know if he does anything else. Okay, it's not going to be the shrublands. The riverlands, like many other places inhabited by the people of Panga, are still recuperating, regenerating from the effects of the factory age. The Lacetail River, in particular, is still dirty, polluted, and littered. Some of the many landfills that used to dot the landscape are still there. However, the folks who reside in the village of Cat's Landing are resilient and creative. They're in the process of cleaning up the river and building a new village with the upcycled materials. What a cool concept. And geothermal plant, which is a feature within a city. Smell of sulfur in sticky air greets travelers who walk past the plant, which is straight out of the book. Its chimney rising high into the sky, the smoke ominous in the evening. Not smoke, steam. It's steam. It's a geothermal plant. Jumpstore says rare with a hand over her face. I really should have picked that up from context. Road, a thread that connects villages to village, winds in concentric circles, and then it reaches the forest where weeds grow through cracks and potholes abound, which is, when they say forest here, they mean the wilds where you're not really supposed to go. Which is the premise of the book. And then the other stuff is wild built stuff. So everyone liked the forest. What did we call them? The woodlands? The woodland village. So let's put that down. Jumpstore says Astra is probably only hard at work when it comes to creating tea blends, which is probably only when she's run out of her pre-made blends. Well, as a tea monk, she makes tea blends for everyone who comes and sees her with their troubles. Her work, her vocation is blending teas for the world. And I do really like that concept, because I'm going to say this really quick because it is bordering on some stuff that I don't usually want to bring into the stream. But when they do studies where they give people money to live for nothing, what I guess we would call UBI, what they discovered was that people did not stop working. Instead, they did the labor they felt was important. So people who might have formerly worked in, like, I don't know, a sock factory, would go on and start doing things like rebuilding a playground or something like that, or volunteering or whatever else. And I think a lot of what I've read in A Psalm for the Wild Built is based around the premise that people do want to work, but on things they think are important. And if what's important to you is blending teas for people and seeing them smile over them, then that's still work. Woodland villages. Okay, I saw a vote for a sauna and a tool library, so we're going to use the sauna and tool library. Okay, and then within each of these, we have some features, some choices to make. So let's start with the woodland villages. This place can always describe what we stand in the shadows of. What a strange sentence. I get what they mean, but what a strange way to put it. Provide shelter and solace in times of trouble. Ask, will you stay? And listen to the wisdom of the wind blowing through the trees. Give one peb if they stay and listen. I haven't really explained pebs, and I may not this stream either. Choose 2 aesthetic elements. Okay, chat, this is your bread and butter. A list of descriptors. You guys generally like picking this stuff. I shouldn't be too presumptuous. So for our woodland village, we have these aesthetic elements. Tell me which ones we should include. We're supposed to pick 2. Nest-like tree houses, which we can decide exactly what that looks like. Tree trunks wrapped with flower garland, ribbons, and solar bulbs. That. God, I am a distractible person, but I remember this one year. I don't remember even how I found out about it. I don't remember what it was called. But there was this festival in a city like maybe 25 minutes away from where I lived at the time, around Vancouver, in a field. And it was just sort of like a commune of artists, I guess, had put together. It was an official city event, though. Had put together what I guess I would describe as like kind of like in a festival put on by Alice in Wonderland. And it had lights wrapped around things and little tents and colorful stuff and teas you could buy and drink. And it wasn't there to advertise anything. It wasn't like, such and such themed. It was just this odd little explosion of creativity in a field that was like across the street from like a halfway house or something. Like it was really in a very odd place in the middle of a field. And it was an absolute delight. And I wish I knew where it was or what I could do again. But that description there of flower gardens, ribbons, and solar bulbs around it, the base of trees, that just immediately made me think of that. Jumpstore says, are these all going to sound like good descriptors? Because the first 2 are sounding really good. They are, aren't they? This is a really lovely space to live in, which is why I thought this could be another repeating series like our floating bookshop. Platform, pulleys, and zip lines. Well, number 3 is average. Dangling bridges. Oh, love dangling bridges. I guess my main touch point when I see nest-like treehouses and dangling bridges is, unfortunately, not that I hate it, but it's not exactly the space I want to recreate for a book like this, is the Return of the Jedi's little fuzzy bear things. Star Wars. Anyways, trees taller than any building outside of the city. Well, we'll just assume that's the case. Leaf-strewn ground speckled with dappled lace sunlight. It's not really a feature, is it? It's just a thing that happens when there's trees. Paper lanterns hanging from tree branches. I do like paper lanterns. Something else of your own invention. Okay, I'll read those back really quick, and then I'm going to let chat think about it while I talk about the piece of folklore, which is something I haven't mentioned so far, but each of these little cities has folklore. Starting to see why it caught my attention. So the 2 aesthetic elements we have to pick from the list are nest-like tree houses, tree trunks wrapped with flower garlands, ribbons, and solar bulbs, platforms, pulleys, and zip lines, dangling bridges, trees taller than any building outside the city, leaf-strewn ground speckled with dappled lace sunlight, paper lanterns hanging from tree branches, or something else of your own invention. Tammy says, Ewoks. Rory, they are adorable. I have no issue with Ewoks, really. They're a bit weird in the setting, and the fight scene with them has a lot of unintentional comedy. Jumpstore says, oh, I like the vision Speckled and Dappled brought. I do as well. My point was we don't have to waste our choice on that Jumpstore because that's just going to be the case of any place with a canopy. I wasn't saying we exclude it. I just don't think it should be one of our aesthetic elements. And then you choose one folklore about this place. The magic song of giant trees. The mutant beast who hides in the thickets. Well, if I know my chat. The lost village of the proto-pangans. Again, Panga is the moon we're on. So that's like Earthling. Or something else of your own invention. Which reminds me, I didn't talk to you about folklore. So let me mention that. The folklore of a place might openly contradict the stories you've always heard in your homes, or they might clash against other folklore in neighboring places, as they often do. Folklore isn't consistent. They are passed down through stories. It is passed down through stories and performance. They live, and it lives and breathes and changes. It's the conversation people have with local places they inhabit, and it should be both taken with a grain of salt and given just respect. So, in other words, every place has a piece of folklore. Zombie Wolf says, here we go. Roy's giving us the meat and potatoes of the game. Indeed. Zombie Wolf says, yep, you know me. Give me those abominations hiding in the forest. GS says mutant beast. Yeah, no, I know my group. If you would have picked otherwise and you're lurking, don't feel intimidated. You can jump in the chat and make your own recommendations, and oftentimes if I can think of a way, I try to include as many things as we can. I just happen to know that some of our more active chatters were going to jump on Mutant Beast in the Thicket. Okay. So what was our two aesthetic elements? I think we all liked the tree houses. So that means we need to pick one more. Jumpstore liked the speckled and dappled lace sunlight, but my only point with that is that I'm going to describe that anyways. It's going to be in the story. Our other one, though, You know what I like about dangling bridges? This might seem like a strange thing to say, but, you know, if I'm imagining a town like this, because dangling bridge, it feels like you could go dangling bridges or you could go pulleys and zip lines. The thing about zip lines is, as much as they're fun, and we could still have them around, zip lines aren't very accessible, right? Whereas, like, bridges could be built to be accessible to people who were older or had disabilities or whatever else. I kind of want our town to be accessible. Ooh. My neck cracked. Sorry. Zombie Wolf says, I like the trees taller than any buildings in the city. Gotta be some old trees. Or maybe they grow different on Panga. I'm giving you guys a chance to sort of absorb. It is our hometown. We realistically are going to leave it in like 4 sentences, but I would like to give a little description of our hometown first. Also because every time we go to a new place, we will be picking this again. So like the structure, if you haven't picked up on it so far, of the last 2 streams, is I wanted to show you how we set up character last stream, and I wanted to show you how we set up locations in this stream, because that's the meat and potatoes of the game, to take Zombie Wolf's turn of phrase. And then going forward, when I return to this, I won't need to really re-describe either of those elements. If we need to create townsfolk, or if we need to create new locations we travel to with Rune and Astra, it'll go much quicker than this. I'm just making sure we all grasp it so that we enjoy it when it happens. Dangling bridges are so cool. Visit your neighbors or go to the store via bridge. Oh, yeah, I do like it. Okay, well, you know what? Screw it. We'll do 3. I like the tall trees. I mean, realistically, we're doing 4 because dappled lays sunlight on the ground. It's just going to happen with canopies. So we'll also have gems in there. Yeah. The reason why you don't want to pick them all, by the way, if you're like, what's the point of not picking them all, is there supposed to be more than one woodland village. And so when you go to another woodland village, you want it to be distinct. So you don't want to pick everything for one village. It's got to have its own nature. Okay, woodland village, tree houses, trees taller than a building. Not gonna write it all out. We know what it means. And dangling bridges. And I guess if you need to get up to the bridge, there would probably be a pulley system if you were a person who would be unable to climb. Jump Store says, yay, I helped. It's your birthday. You don't have to help. We live to serve the happiness of one's birthday. I don't know why I said that like it's like an occultic activity. Happy birthday, Jump Store. And then somebody pours wine into a vessel and holds it up in the thick incense. And there's your... I don't know what I'm talking about. I should save this for writing. Okay, so let's do that 2 more times, but we'll do it a little bit quicker because they're less significant stuff. So the tool library. Right. So the aesthetic elements of the tool library: bins filled with scrap metal and discarded lumber. Drafting table stocked with pencils and gridded paper. Long forgotten, half completed project by a master builder. I am exercising complete non-democratic authority over my stream and saying we are at least picking that. Oh, everyone likes the occult birthday. Okay. I'll do that at some point for a friend with no explanation. It'll be a surprise birthday party, but they'll come in, their house will be thick with incense. We'll all be in red robes with strange symbols embroidered on them, and we'll be like, happy birthday, ooh. And then we'll leave. We won't do any party. Anyways, the half-built project is definitely happening. So you need to pick one other aesthetic element because Rory has seated his butt on that one. Shoe rack with well-worn leather steel-toed boots. Ooh, I like that they care about safety. Peg wall filled with new tools. Small container of washers, nails, screws, and brackets. Focused builder constructing a large piece of furniture. And something else of your own invention. So we have to choose one more aesthetic element because Rory has decided the long-forgotten, half-completed project by a master builder. GS is laughing at the... Yeah, that's right. That's right, Zombie Wolf. Then you draw up the ceremonial dagger and you're like, but this year, on your 30th, we must water the fields so they grow. And then come at them with the ceremonial dagger. All right. I mean, I feel like a tool library. Maybe don't overthink, but pick one of those, chat. The folklore about the tool library, I might not focus on because we only have so much time for writing. But if you're curious, the options are the golden hammer and the builder who used it. When rust grew from the earth, the conference of the robot constructors. I'm not going to touch too much of the robot lore yet because it is its own complexity in Becky Chambers' world. Mazoga's unbuildable puzzle box. I mean, that has my attention. Something else of your own invention. GS says something automotive so you can work on your vehicle. Yeah. Well, I guess a peg wall filled with tools. Also, we'd have to decide what the half-completed project is. Jumpstore is still referencing the occultic birthday activities. It's a shame the full moon was on the 21st. The sacrifice will have to take place in subpar atmospheric conditions. Yes. Yes. The Harvest Lord sweeps his scythe again. I'm going to end birthday songs with that. I'd like an office. We'll just sing happy birthday together in the same bland way as always. And at the end, I'll clap my hands together and go, and may the Harvest Lord sweep his merciful bloody scythe through you again. And then never explain it. Tammy Morelli says, I like the unsolvable box. I do too. I don't even know what that would mean, and that interests me. This is the tool library. Half completed project. I guess it would be like, I'm not doing this. I'm just thinking about this skit I created, but I guess it would be more like, I'm glad that the Harvest Lord's bloody scythe missed you this year. May it miss another year. Okay. Half completed project, and I guess pegboard tools, because I don't think anybody really cares about the details of the tool library. Sauna, which I suspect you're going to have more opinions on, is the last one we have to figure out, and then we'll construct our town, and we'll have them do a little tour around the town before they leave. So, yeah, Tammy, I agree. It does. You know, I kind of liked Hellraiser. I think it was a really interesting concept. I don't know that I liked everything about its execution, but actually, something that is very Hellraiser, it's also very Warhammer, which apparently was an intentional aspect of it, is Event Horizon. In most respects, not a very good show. It's kind of a cult hit. But it's like, it's one of those movies that you watch it and you see that there was a lot of potential for it to be better than it was. Like, where it's good, it's very good. If you like that kind of cosmic gothic horror, which is a minor subgenre, but a subgenre nonetheless. Gia says, that's a great birthday reading, Roy, and then in brackets says friends start avoiding him. I'll be honest. They already do. Okay, so public sauna. Now, I'm sure you have opinions about this, chat. Public sauna is, I will give you the description, but then you're going to need to pick 2 aesthetic elements, and I promise I will not be authoritarian about this. A public sauna is a sauna building open to all and found in most communities. It's a place of sweat, self-care, relaxation, and purification. When you arrive at this place, decide which ways to indulge are available. So the aesthetic elements are a warm and cold bath for cooling down. Pardon me. A hot bath to soak in. An exercise area to work up a sweat. I don't think anybody's picking the exercise area in this chat. I know I'm not. But you're welcome to. I'm not shaming anybody out of it. I just don't think that's a part of our fantasy based on conversations we've had over the last year. Built-in shelves and towels and colorful jars of mixtures. A collection of chill visitors enjoying themselves. Aquaponic ponds with fish and plants to filter gray water. Oh, that's very cool. Biofilters. My partner spent the last month building biofilters for some of her smaller ponds. They're very cool. They do. Very interesting. A host of proper attendants tending the space. And something else of your own invention. So, chat. You are a tall, round-faced, red-haired tea monk. A person who blends teas and listens to people's problems and gives them teas for that. You're finished your day and you go to the local sauna. What stands out for you? Is it the warm and cold bath for cooling down, or the hot bath to soak in? An exercise area to work up a sweat? Built-in shelves with towels and colorful jars of mixtures? The collection of visitors enjoying themselves? The aquaponic ponds with fish and plants to filter gray water? If you guys don't know what gray water is, gray water means it's not sewage, but it's not clean. So usually it's stuff that comes from like shower drains. Tammy says, what about nudist sauna? I'd say it's probably clothing optional. Most saunas, frankly, are. Especially in, like, Japan. Zombie Wolf says, my friends played Warhammer once, but we didn't like how dark and dystopic the game was. Yeah, it's kind of definitively so. Yeah, I'm not confident about the lore either, Zombie Wolf. I'm not even going to try to say it. Yeah, it's Warhammer is not really my cup of tea. I do like rules. I do like density. I actually do think the world is interesting, and some of the spin-off products I like. But it's a pretty hardcore war game. Like, you know, it's kind of what D&D was a little structured like before it became D&D, so that's a little more intensely tactical than I like to be. Oh, Jump Store coming in with an excellent character moment. My invention, the herbs used in the sauna to promote a feeling of relaxation and restoration when you're finished. I think not only that, you should be a tea monk who's innovating into sort of bathing oils and scents with your leaves. I think that's a great idea. We're definitely using that. I would like a warm rain feature that is in the pond room. Oh, that's really beautiful too, GS. Okay, we're not using any of theirs. We're using GS's and Jump Stores because those are like 60 times better. I gotta do that thing. I gotta do that thing where you're gonna have to hear my air conditioner for a little bit. We made it pretty far. Sweating in the back of my shirt, but you don't know that until right now. Okay. A warm rain room to view the ponds, to view the biofiltering ponds. And I'm just going to cut and paste it. How about we call it like tea baths? An innovation of Astra, or tea herbs and cleaning herbs are blended in the hot pools for certain effects. It's going to be hard to leave this town. We have tea baths. By the way, I mentioned I would say more about the book, Psalm for the Wild Built. I'll say this briefly, because I don't want to go too far in it. Yeah, Zombie Wolf, it's more about my laptop than me, to be completely honest. I think the accomplishment of the novella Psalm for the Wild, built by Becky Chambers, is what this game picks up on, which is the world is very good. When the prose is talking about the world, it really hums along. It's a lovely space, and for that alone, I think if you're a person, especially a person who's looking for hope and are worried about things like climate change and stuff, I think the greatest value the whole genre of Solarpunk gives is a vision of a survivable future, and I think the book really accomplishes that better than a lot I've seen. My general issue with utopic fiction is that the characters tend to feel a little flat. And I wouldn't say this is the worst case of it. And I'm not all the way through it, so it could be setting up a character arc. But so far, they feel a little too... they're easy, I guess. Yeah, I kind of want them to struggle a bit more than they do, or have more faults than they do, if it was to my taste. But I also understand that to some extent, the focus of a book like this is just a sort of relatively unproblematic fantasy and escape. A place to feel some relaxation and hope. So I'm hesitant to be too judgy of it. But so far, while it is interesting, I would say that it tends to feel a little momentumless at times, and the character feels a little isolated to me. In a way, isolated from me as a reader, I should say. Jumpstore says, it's okay, Zombie. It's my birthday, so I know Rory's laptop will hold till the end for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's sound scientific reasoning. Okay. Woodland Villages, sauna, tool library. We have our city. Do we want to name our city? We don't have to. Not our city, our town. Let's call it that. So our city, or town, or village. Village is the term they use. I think actually, Jumpstore, I think that's actually a thing in the book. They don't describe why, but I do think that's actually a thing in the book. Our tea monk is going to have a true appreciation to tea. Make sure she only bags her tea in sachets. Or sachets? Not sachets. But I don't think it's pronounced sachets, and for some reason I can't think of the pronunciation. Somebody spell it out in the chat for me so I don't make an idiot of myself. So it's a woodland village. As if this whole stream isn't me making an idiot of myself. Woodland villages, tree houses, trees taller than a building and dangling bridges between them. Sauna, a warm rain room to view the biofiltering ponds. Tea baths, an innovation of Astra where tea herbs and cleaning herbs are blended in the hot pools for certain effects. Tool library. There's a half-completed project there. We do have to decide what that project is. I have some ideas if we don't. Pegboard of tools. And, oh, I forgot to put in our folklore for the sauna and our folklore for the woodland village. I know we picked one for the woodland village already, but let's look at the sauna really quick. What's the folklore? Well, I don't even know why I'm asking, because I think I know what you're going to pick, but here are the options. The cat who loves baths. Do I need to continue reading your other options, chat? Or is the cat who loves bath as a piece of folklore about the sauna about the only thing you need to hear? But the second one is the water ritual of Grolum, which is a god in this world, I believe. The haunted furnace that just won't quit, or something else of your own invention. I don't even need to look at chat. It's just going to say the cat who loves baths. Not even bothering. The cat loves baths. That's the folklore for the sauna. Yeah, Zombie Wolf is on it. Yeah. All right. And then our place was Woodlands, and ours was the Mutant Beast who hides in the thickets. That's right. GS says, once upon a time there was a sad laptop, but it was so happy on Jumpstore's birthday. I assumed that it huffed and puffed and made it to the end of the stream, and Jumpstore had the happiest B-day. GS says, you're right, Rory, it's Sachet. Oh, weird. It's weird that I'm right. That's really common for me, though, to feel like I'm wrong and then discover I was right. I mean, it's not like it never happens the other way around, but I will say it's very common where I'm like, oh no, that can't be right, and then find out I'm right. See if I can get this onto one page. I can. Okay. Okay, well, I guess we should do, as part 2, there's sort of tour and then leaving the town. Everyone said cat. Yeah, I didn't need to check. Sachet obviously makes me think of, like, sachet. Or, like, RuPaul going, sachet away. I thought there was less tea than there was. And what I did there was, like, a frat boy glug of tea. It's not a great way to enjoy tea. I forgot to ask what tea people were drinking. Do let me know. Zombie Wolf. Lunaris Lucios. Let's call it Lunaris. I don't want a two-name city. That's going to be hard to fit in prose. Lunaris can work, though. Okay. We left off with her collecting up for the tea. Okay. Astra was staring. Not staring. Was furrowing. Come on, brain. Some source says Rory's tea is to be savored, not gulped. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I misjudged the depth left in the cup. It would be weird, though. If you, like, went to, I don't know what it would be. Like a Wiccan frat house. And instead of, you know, chugging beer, they were, like, chugging tea. Obviously not too hot. But still with, like, a spout doing, like, I guess it wouldn't be a keg stand, it would be, like, a kettle stand. And Zombie Wolf says it comes from Lunar Wolf, which I thought was good imagery for a woodland city. It is, absolutely. My exclusion of the second half is a purely pragmatic thing of long names are hard to work in prose. You'll notice that most of the time I pick names that are like 1 to 2 syllables. And the reason for that is it's just easier to work rhythm around it. Jumpstore says, I'm drinking lavender spearmint tea with butterfly pea flowers and ice cubes made from lime sparkling water with edible glitter added. Well, that's got to be a birthday special. I refuse to believe you make that every day. That sounds fantastic. GS says, girls are used to the word sachets because we get them for gifts to put in our drawers. Like literal clothing drawers or like pants. They don't actually work because we pile clothes onto, oh, okay, clothing drawers, but a good cheap gift. Okay. Aster cast a glance at the satchel of tea leaves in her left. Then to the satchel in her right. I really like blossoms. I will say that. One of the nice things is someone in my household grows stuff in gardens now, which I'm not particularly talented at doing, so I get a lot of fresh herbs and stuff. But it also means I get things like thyme flowers and stuff, which you can't really get flowers because they wilt and die within hours of being picked, but usually. So you can't get them in stores, and it's kind of a lost delicacy of a fresh garden salad or something to have flowers in it. Flowers are delicious. Zombie Wolf says, rhythms? Rory, since when were we making slam poetry for these nightly sessions? No, not that. It's not that restrictive of rhythm. But all writing has rhythm. The difference between like good and bad prose is people who can feel that rhythm of the natural rhythm of whatever language you're writing in. Jumpstar says, I wasn't exaggerating when I said tea is my passion. Then I feel like you should probably read Psalm for the Wild Built. I don't think you'll love everything about it. Jumpstar, I don't know you, obviously. You know, we talk a bit twice a week. But I do feel like there's enough affection for tea in it and enough fantasy about, you know, a sort of post-labor society that I think at least the world you would enjoy. Astra casts a glance at the satchel of tea leaves in her left hand and then to the satchel in her right. Her brow furrowed. She knew Rune's trip would entail a long absence for the village of Lunaris. Tammy Morelli says, nice passion to have, Gemstore. I think everyone should have a passion. Doesn't need to be something everyone agrees with. If you like playing video games, if you really like, you know, obviously writing or one of the arts, if you really enjoy tea or, you know, you're really good at cooking bacon or something, I don't know, something you feel like your body is made to construct. I think that is the key to most of life. Yeah, me too, Jumpstore. Talking about Japanese tea ceremonies. I hope to see them, frankly, soon. I don't know when I'll be able to get there. I was going to go to Japan in April 2020. That didn't happen. I'll let you guys work backwards as to why. I think I've mentioned that on the stream. I think you will, too, Jumpstore. I think you will, if that's your passion. She knew Rune's trip would entail a long absence. Her long absence from the village. This village of Lunaris. I should just loop this song. This is my favorite song on this playlist. Everyone listen to Hannah Lindgren's Opposite to Destruction. Do some square breathing. Sip your tea. Let your shoulders fall away. Loosen that jaw. She knew Rune's trip would entail her long absence from the village, this village of Lunaris. And that might run them dry of her bathing teas. The concept of a bathing tea. Jumpstore says, great travel plans, terrible timing. Yeah. It's between that and can't think of the name of it right now, but some theme park or something that I was thinking of going to too. For my birthday in April 2020. Just did not happen. The concept of a bathing tea was... Astra's own innovation on the tea arts. She grew teas and bathing herbs in her wild garden. Jumpstore says, is Rory leading us in meditation tonight? Well, no, because if I did that, I'd probably fall asleep before any of you. Just. And while I know that's a streamer thing, to put a stream on yourself while you sleep, I promise you I will never do that. And I don't understand it. Oh, what's the sauna's name? I mean, I can't move on till I have that. Everyone is getting sleepy. Well, I mean, that's fine. I think one of my original conceptions when I was thinking of at least the Fireside Fairy Tales was like, this might be the kind of thing I listen to when I fall asleep. Although now I do like sound effects and voices, so I think it's probably too dynamic to fall asleep to. But I don't know. Tell me if you guys fall asleep to them. It is a unique thing in the streaming arts that it is one of the few performing arts where you are perfectly fine with your people falling asleep. Silent Reverie. Very nice, Zombie Wolf. We can use that one. I just realized I didn't color the light behind me. I'm going to do that now. You might not even notice that I do that. I don't know. Tammy loves my voice characters. Yeah, but of course, the thing is if you're doing something for people to fall asleep to, you're supposed to keep like a single sort of tone. It's not very interesting for storytelling, but it is soothing, right? Silent Reverie. The local sauna. The Silent Reverie. Yeah, if anything, I'll write some of the thing. Sometimes I am when I'm writing my own stuff, which I still do. When I'm writing my own stuff on my own, sometimes I'll be like, I'll think of one of you. I'll be like, that person would be perfect right now. I could just say, hey, what should I do with this? What name should I have or whatever? If you're curious, no, I would never write stuff that from the get-go I plan to publish on stream. For one, this is a fun way to come up with ideas and put them together, but the actual prose that it comes up with is below standard of what I would want to be doing, and it takes a lot more focus to do better. And the second is, I don't like people knowing too much about a story going in. I'm a little old school on that. I try to keep my secrets. Tammy says, do you have anything published, Rory? Yeah, Yeah, nothing that you could easily get, but anything that has been published or even unpublished is on my website, varietal-literature.ca. There's a mixture of some other writer friends of mine on there. All of us have been published in one way or another, but when we say published, we mean like, you know, journals that cost like $50 and you have to order and back order to get, and like it's niche stuff. So no, not like books you can buy online. Jump Store, Rory's gonna have zombie on speed dial. She grew tea. It's not just zombie though. Like I was doing something with tea in one of my stories that I've been sort of trying to sketch out lately. And I thought of you, Jumpstore. I was like, Jumpstore would have something interesting to say about this. Yeah, your activation code, I think we agreed, was the infinity symbol. She grew cheese and bathing herbs in her wild garden at the local sauna, the Silent Reverie. The concept of the bathing tea was Astra's own invention in the tea arts. Innovation. She grew cheese and bathing herbs in her wild garden at the local sauna, the Silent Reverie. Would leave to steep. I mean, why not a natural spring? Natural springs are great. It became a defining feature of the town, of the village. Something neighboring tea monks, neighboring villages would venture out to experience themselves. Tea baths and hand-picked tea pairings to sip in the warm waters of the wild hot springs. Jumpstore says, "Wow, this really is a birthday stream. I'm getting all kind of shout out." There you go. I can't give you stuff, but maybe I can give you a sense of community and self-esteem. Not as good as money and tea, but it's up there. Sipping the warm waters of the wild hot springs. Tea baths and hand-picked, hand-blended. Astra didn't want the hot springs, didn't want the sauna, too. Astra didn't want the sauna to conditioner for a bit. Astra didn't want the sauna to run dry. She wasn't sure if her preferred mix would age well in her absence. On the other hand, literally, was a bag of a milder tea that staled in quite a fragrant way. She was nearing a quiet decision in her sunlight dappled hut. All decisions are quiet. She was nearing a decision in her sunlight dappled hut when the door burst open and Rune, now saddled by various pouches, stuffed with amenities, rushed in with all the energy of a coastal windstorm. Yeah, unfortunately, they're not. Like I said, I can't really turn on links because I can't really adequately police my chat. So unfortunately, it'd be hard to share a link, but I am aware of what you're talking about, Jump Store. It's a very cute meme. He was ready to go, and therefore, by Rune's estimation, Astra was ready to go. However, the complication was Astra was never ready to go. She was keen to help her friend, and not opposed to novelty. After all, T-monks were regular nomads. But she also liked her permanent little wagon here in Lunaria. Is that it? Nope, it's not it. What is Lunaria? Jumpstore, remind me of the name of your town. PewDiePie, there's a name I haven't seen in a while. Good lord, that takes me back. Not that I was ever really a regular watcher of him, but it was hard to not know him. But she also liked her permanent little wagon here in Lunaria. Lunaris. There we go. Below the dangling tree homes of the city. Below the villages, dangling tree homes and their web of interconnecting bridges. She was nearing a decision in her sunlight. And therefore, by Rune's estimation, Astra is ready to go as well. However, the complication was Astra was never ready to go. That's right, that was the thesis of this paragraph. She was keen to help her friend, and not opposed to the novelty of travel. But she also liked her immobile little wagon here in Lunaris, snuggled in under the village's dangling tree homes and creaking web of interconnected bridges. Jump Store. It is one of my all-time favorite videos of the raccoon washing the cotton candy and then not knowing where it went. They are so charming, despite being frankly quite violent little creatures. They're just so charming. Not violent against humans, I should say, but they are violent against other like-sized rodents and animals and stuff. Yeah, it's nature. GS says, I watched a YouTube short yesterday of a raccoon untying a clothesline, relocating it, and retying it. I didn't know they were that smart. I knew they were clever, but I didn't know they were smart. Also, well, she knew... What's the name of the mutant in the thickets for this? Jumpstore, if not friend, then why friend shaped? Well, you can make them friendly. They are somewhat domesticatable. But they also, not to upset anybody, but like, they are killers of pets. Maybe the pets pick a fight or whatever, or I don't know. Yeah, they are a concern. If you have a lot of raccoons around and you have smaller animals, like cats and dogs, you got to be careful about that because they win. Because, you know, at the end of the day, they're wild animals. Okay. What was the question I asked? Oh, what's the name of this thicket monster? The mutant beast that hides in the thicket. What is the cutesy or weird name or whatever that the city has for it? Oh my god, I can't believe how much time has passed. I don't know if we're going to get out of this village. I can't do a third week of this. That's asking too much of my audience. I mean, I can, but not in a row. Trying to think of real ones from folklore. I mean, there's like the Neckar, which is of the Neckar River in Germany, which strangles things in the water. Bog bunny? GS, that's amazing. Zombie Wolf says, when Carcadigo. I like that one, but I'm so charmed by Bog Bunny, GS. Bog Bunny's hilarious. And well, she knew the local tale of the Bog Bunny. a 12-foot dagger-toothed monster who formed from the toxic waters of the factory age. Supposedly, I suppose. And now roamed the thickets around Lunaris. Hunting for children was definitely not a true story. All right, chat, fair enough, but also savage. GS says, sounds terrifying, but you know Roy wouldn't be able to remember that name. Like, it's true. It's kind of impressive I remember my own name. Sometimes I do pause on the stream and I go, what is my name? Okay. And now roamed the thickets around Lunaris hunting for children. Also, I gotta restructure the sentence. Give me a second. Also, Astra definitely didn't believe there was This is a terrible sentence. I gotta salvage this. I think I gotta take some of the negatives out. Zombie Wolf already out with the fun facts, talking about raccoon brains. I think what we can conclude is that raccoons are probably smarter than me. They'd remember a name. The tale, a local legend, told of a 12-foot tall dagger-toothed monster who supposedly arose from the toxic waters of the factory age and now roamed the thickets around the Lunaris hunting for uncautious children. Incautious, I guess, yeah. She knew it wasn't true. But it still felt plausible when the moon was thin and the thickets and the underbrush thick. Not hiking, harvesting. It was said that the village hung their homes from the tall trees to be safe from the bog bunny. Astra knew that this used to be a floodplain before the regrowth on the coast. And that the hanging homes were more a matter of tradition than functionality. But still, she wondered about that bog bunny. When the nights were a little bit too quiet around her home. And so, for this reason, which she could not openly admit to Rune, she felt hesitation. To go traipsing. Is that how it's spelled? Tell me if I'm spelling that wrong. It's not telling me I'm wrong, but it feels wrong. As in to go traipsing out into the ruins and wilds of Panga with one impulsive boy. And little else to defy creatures whether they be bog bunny or a simple bear. Yet there was few else that could drag the cozy Astra from her nestled nest of teeth and Rune. She looked upon his handsome and confident smile, then nodded and stuffed both satchels of bathing tea in her pocket, saying, "Let's stop off at the sauna. Before we head out." Okay. Rune squealed with glee and nodded. Gia says, I checked Google for the spelling of traipsing. I'm assuming that means I was correct. It showed a graph of how unused the word was, but suddenly its usage spiked in 2019. Well, that was the great traipsing of 2019. Not a time we want to remember, but a time we must remember. Anyways, I don't need to explain that any further. I mean, everyone remembers the great traipsing of 2019. I hope there is some historical... I hope there is some world where this is an historical document, like some memory chip somewhere, and they're trying to piece together our time. And they're like, we can only find one reference, but you know, we don't have a lot from that time. A lot of it was on digital stuff we can't recover. But we've heard about this apparently quite traumatic and widely known great traipsing of 2019. I don't want to, but I have things I have to do that are time sensitive, which means I kind of have to just stop. I did not make it as far as I planned, which is a shame. I don't know what to do about that. I want to get us out of the town so that when we come back to this after a period of time, we can make a new town and go there. But there's not much I can do. She dragged her sack backpack onto the... She stuffed her backpack into her wagon. No, he's got the bike. Into Rune's wagon. Being careful. Her teas were not mingling with his unkempt tools. Then huddled up on the back of his hover bike. And they swept off to the silent reverie on the east side of town. Where the volcanic runoff pooled. Jump Store says, digital stuff we can't recover. This is why I only buy physical books. Keep your ebooks. Audible. I'd rather have something real in my hands any day. In general, I do. Yeah, in general, I do keep physical books. But it's hard for me to deny that there are things I wouldn't be able to see if it wasn't for digital space. You know, there's a lot of sort of indie publishing that is possible in a digital-only format. Okay. I don't know why this made me think of this, but I just wanted to mention it. If you folks are the kind of folks who play D&D, and you're watching a tabletop RPG stream, so there's a good chance that's the case, and you like this kind of cozy aesthetic, this book, which I have no relationship to any creator or profit from, called Witch Plus Craft, with utterly gorgeous art, is a locally made Vancouver book. A bunch of artists, some of which I kind of know. So maybe that's a connection. I just happen to know a lot of artists through my partner. Is a book about attaching to pretty much any class the ability to craft stuff. It's a crafting system, but it's a crafting system that takes seriously the sort of ideas we see in this kind of game, where I won't go into all the details of it, but it's on the notion of like domestic magic. So you kind of get recipes from your DM. You have to collect a certain amount of stuff, whether that's a recipe or a design or certain materials, and those get represented by D6s. And you roll a certain number of D6s and you add on your modifiers, and that determines how your project comes out. And then it also has this really cool thing where like every one you roll are flaws with the thing you build, and then every 6 you roll is like boons that come with that thing. And they stack, so like you get a higher level boon or a higher level flaw, and then you get abilities later as you level up. It levels with your character to be able to undo a lot of that stuff, and some of it is pretty cool. Anyways, it's a hard book sell for a lot of people who just kind of want to dungeon delve, but if you're the kind of person like me who wants like a chef or a writer or something to be something more mechanically significant in D&D 5e, which is pretty much the only system I can see it fitting, I really recommend it. You can get it digitally or physically. Jumpstore says, yes, Rory, just think of all the TikToks you'd miss out on. Well, no, I'm thinking more like for myself, even, right? There's lots of stuff I've put up on my website. I'm sure it's not widely read. I have no indication it's widely read, but it's more widely read than it ever was going to be, right? Like, I don't have the money, the $1,000 to do print runs of small books and stuff like that. So, and also that's a huge investment that I can't make as a writer because I'm just not, I don't have that kind of cash around to lose. And that's what happens. My friends who have gone the way of doing physical prints of their short story collections and stuff like that on their own dime, generally you just can't move it. So digital space makes it possible for independent writers to write. I will say that. But that said, given the choice, I go for physical media. GS says, what a beautiful book. It truly is. I'm not even doing it justice. Like if I showed you some of the other pictures in here. It's all different styles of art. This is a terrible way to view this, by the way. My lights are colored, so they're kind of washing out colors. I have orange and blue lights, but... there's this dude with his giant walk, which predates Dungeon Meshi, by the way. This book by a good, even the Japanese version by a good amount. Which he says zines. This is a proper book, actually. Or you mean I should publish zines? My cough medicine isn't working great today, so I've barely been here. I am so sorry to hear that, Witchery. Okay, that's enough of me getting distracted. Let's read the very little I wrote. And when I do come back to Lunar Echoes, which I am going to come back to Lunar Echoes, I will focus on the writing, because mechanically there isn't much else to do. There's a bit of a mechanic about how to describe some people in the town. There's a bit of mechanic around the how to describe wild things like runes and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, perfect. It's back to this song. If you're coming into this part of the show, you just want to see what we wrote. I wrote a lot less than I anticipated, and I apologize for that, but I will be coming back to this. Maybe not next week, but in the future. The game is called Lunar Echoes, and it is a hack of Wanderhome, which is another tabletop RPG. We are playing it solo, which is a variant way to play it, and it is based on the world of Becky Chambers' novella, A Psalm for the Wild Built, which is a Solarpunk, if you know the genre, version of Wanderhome, basically, which is a sort of animal. You play little animals in a fantasy land in Wanderhome. This one is about humans living in a sort of post-scarcity society, if you will. This is part 2 of it. I did read the first part that we wrote last week at the beginning of the stream, but also I read it last week if you want to go back and watch that stream. We spent most of this stream creating our home village, of which we won't get too far into because I didn't write as much as I wanted to, going through the mechanics for creating a village. And last week we went through the mechanics of creating a character. Next time, whenever I come back to this, we'll go through the mechanics of how to create either a wild space or people within a village. We'll see how it goes. And then after that, we'll just be telling our story. But I'm going to read you the little bit we did have. And it picks up with Astra. So just in case you missed the first part, the very brief or forgot it, very briefly, Rune, an 18-year-old boy, has gotten permission from his mother to go and get a new antenna for the town to have a 2-way radio. He thinks he knows where he can find one. He's good at looking at runes. He has this bike that has some repurposed stuff that allows him to hover. It sometimes needs to run on some high-proof alcohol in its old engine, but he's trying to look for a way to make it not need that as a part of his journey. But he mostly wants to go and find the girl that he used to talk to on the 2-way radio until a lightning storm destroyed the antenna. And he's going with Astraelis, who is a tea monk, which is a concept from Becky Chambers' world. And Astraelis goes by Astra, and we're going to pick up at Astra, who's just been told that she has to come with Rune, otherwise his mom won't let him go. Her in her little hut surrounded by tea leaves, both drying and fresh, trying to make a decision. Astra casts a glance at the satchel of tea leaves in her left hand, and then to the satchel in her right. Her brow furrows. She knew Rune's trip would entail a long absence from this village of Lunaris, and that might run the village dry, of her bathing teas. The concept of a bathing tea was something unique to Lunaris, but more specifically to Astra. It was Astra's own innovation in the tea arts. She grew teas and bathing herbs in her wild garden that the local sauna, the Silent Reverie, would leave to steep in the natural hot spring basin. It became a defining feature of the village, something neighboring village folk would venture out to experience themselves. Tea baths and a hand-blended tea pairing to sip in the warm waters of the wild hot springs. Astra didn't want the sauna to run out of her tea blends, but she wasn't sure if of her preferred mix to leave with them. She wasn't sure if her preferred mix in her left hand would age well in her long absence. On the other hand, literally, was a bag of milder tea that staled in a quite fragrant way, but just wasn't as good. She was nearing a conclusion. I guess I didn't put it there. She didn't know which to leave. She was nearing a conclusion about this tea dilemma in her sunlight-dappled hut when the door burst open and Rune, now saddled with various pouches stuffed with travel amenities, rushed in with all the energy of a coastal storm. He was ready to go. And therefore, by Rune's estimation, Astra was ready to go as well. However, the complication was Astra was never ready to go. She was keen to help her friend Rune, and not opposed to the novelty of travel. After all, tea monks were regular nomads, but she also liked her immobile little wagon here in Lunaris, snuggled in under the village's dangling tree homes and creaking web of interconnected bridges. Also, Astra had to admit she was a bit spooked by the local tales of the bog bunny in the Lunaris thickets around the village. The tale, a local legend, told of a 12-foot-tall dagger-toothed monster who supposedly arose from the toxic waters of the Factory Age and now roamed the thickets around Lunaris hunting for incautious children. She knew it wasn't true, but it still felt plausible when she was out harvesting in places where the moon was thin and the underbrush thick. It was said that the village hung their homes from the tall trees to be safe from this bog bunny. Now, Astra knew that this wasn't true. They hung their homes. Sorry, give me a second. It's a bit of a mess. Truthfully, they hung their homes because Lunaris used to be a floodplain before the regrowth on the coast, and the hanging homes were now more a matter of tradition than functionality. Still, she wondered about that bog bunny. When the nights were a little bit too quiet around her home down on the ground. And so for this reason, which she could not openly admit to Rune, she was hesitant to go traipsing out into the ruins and wilds of Panga with one impulsive boy and little else to defy the creatures of the forest. Whether they be bog bunny or a simple bear. Yet there were few else that could drag cozy Astra from her. Could do that again. Well, there were few, let's say, that could drag the cozy Astra from her nest of tea. Rune was one such person who held that distinction. She looked upon his handsome and confident smile, then nodded and stuffed both satchels of the bathing tea in her pocket, saying, "Let's stop off at the sauna before we head out, okay?" Rune squealed with glee and nodded at her. Astra stuffed her backpack into Rune's wagon, being careful her teas were not mingling with his unkempt tools, then huddled up on the back of his hover bike, and they swept off to the silent reverie on the east side of town where the volcanic runoff pooled. All right. Well, I like what we wrote. I will say that. We didn't write much. I feel like we're still introducing characters, but I do like what we wrote. And the whole reason of doing multiple streams of this is to not feel such a crunch to get a story to happen, to be able to sort of mire myself in the world and the characters a bit more. Like we do with our little fox in the floating bookshop, which, I don't know. I got to double check what the next season is in Floating Bookshop, because it's either going to be August or September when we go back to him. I don't know what we're doing next week. But I will say, if you enjoyed this, I'm definitely doing more Lunar Echoes. I might do more in August because August is the deadest month. So I kind of do things I want, and what I want to do is keep writing this. Zombie Wolf says random trivia, which is Zombie Wolf's primary. What did they call it in Lunar Echoes? Zombie Wolf's vocation, the random trivia. The Batman of random trivia. Does that make sense? It does if you watch the stream regularly. Anyways, researcher found high levels of oxygen 2.5 miles. I was just reading about this. 2.5 miles underwater, but can't explain how it got there. It was previously thought that only living things could make oxygen by converting sunlight like plants. I thought they found out. You know what? I only skimmed the story, so I could be very wrong. But I thought it had something to do with either a mining process or a drilling process, and they had just assumed their sensors were wrong. Were reading wrong, and then they concluded that something else was creating it. We didn't get to the folktale of the cat who liked baths in the sauna, which I would like to get to. We'll see if I remember that line next time. We didn't get to see what the unfinished project was in the tool thing. I'll try to be just more on point next time we come back to this. But if you enjoyed this, I mean, give me a like and it'll let me know if people like the stream. As far as like the algorithm or whatever, I don't get enough views for it to matter. Don't worry about that. But the like does tell me if you want to see more of this. I'm enjoying playing this game. I'm enjoying writing it. Jumpstore, happy birthday to you. I hope that you've had a good birthday and that this was a good feature of it. Zombie Wolf, thank you for the fun fact. Tammy Morelli, thank you for your kind words earlier and for helping us make decisions on the story. GS, thanks for that really cool idea about the rain room. You guys had lots of actually great ideas. The bathing teas is such an interesting idea. That fits very well with the world of the tea monks. I think it was Jump Story came up with that. And yeah, I think if you enjoy this world, it's probably worth checking out Becky Chambers' book, The Psalm for the Wild Built. I don't give it like a no holds barred best thing you'll ever read endorsement, but I think it's good. I think if you like Solarpunk, I can't think of a lot of examples that are as solid. I think there's stuff that if I know my chat, some people in my chat probably wouldn't love every aspect of it, but as long as you're not too picky about it, I think you would enjoy it. I think it's only like 100 pages. It can be a little hard to find at what I would call a good price, but I did manage to find it at a good price. And of course, Witchery. I insist that you get better. You have a conversation with your immune system and tell them that Rory, the streamer Rory, they'll know. You won't need to clarify, but they'll know. Your immune system will know. Tell them that I insist that you get better. And also tell them to stop taking away your taste. Don't do that. That's a jerk move. You tell that COVID to not be a jerk. Gennaro, I hope work is treating you well, and I hope this kept you company during it, and I hope I didn't forget anybody else. Thank you, everybody else, and anybody who lurks. Witchery says, I hope they listen to it. Oh, I think they will. I am a widely unknown streamer, and that is as good as medicine. Yeah, no, I hear that, Witchery. I think I would be so pissed. Anyways, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You could go find a tea monk and talk to them if you want. But for me, my wagon is closed. Kindly and gently with square breathing and soft music in a meditative step. Get out of my shop!